want to talk to you a bit about e-scooters in particular now. There's been a lot of discussion on the show in recent times and on BBC Essex in recent times about them. So I want to get your thoughts on this next story now, because Essex Police have issued a letter to parents of school children warning users of e-scooters they'll be seizing the vehicles in a new crackdown which has started this week. The letter says officers are going to be focusing on the unlawful use of e-scooters, trying to keep users of them and the community safe from injuries. You may have seen quite a lot more of them on our streets here in Essex in recent times. Perhaps you've used one. This move by Essex Police comes after a petition was started on the government website calling for cyclists and e-scooters to be licensed. And that petition was started by the lawyer Nick Freeman, known as Mr. Loophole, and joins me now. Nick, morning.
Good morning, Sonia.
Morning. What's behind this petition then?
Well, it's to make the law work. I mean, there's two different aspects. First of all, as far as e-scooters are concerned, we actually have exactly the same law that exists for motorists. But we have a disconnect because there's no means of enforcing the law because you don't know who is riding on the e-scooter at any one time. So it will be similar, for example, to saying we have existing laws for motorists, people in cars, take the number plate off. Most of those laws become redundant unless they're actually stopped by the police. So for e-scooter riders, the laws are in place. There's a penalty point system, a speed limit, drink drive limit, etc., etc. But you don't know who's on the e-scooter, and I'm suggesting that people sign this petition if they want people to be identifiable. My view is, if people are identifiable, then they will scoot responsibly. They will make our roads safer. In the same way that we do with motorists, because motorists are accountable for their actions because they know at the end of the day, any mistake that they make is likely to be recorded by virtue of their number plate. Their number plate starts a system whereby they can be identified, they become accountable and responsible for their actions. And of course, there are penalties in place, which ultimately can end up with them going to prison. So if you have a system whereby people can actually be accounted for their misconduct, then in my view, the roads will become much safer. So far as cyclists are concerned, well, there's a similar argument in the sense that we need to identify cyclists. There is law in place, but the law is woefully inadequate. I mean, for example, there are no speed limits for cyclists. There isn't a drink drive limit. They're not allowed to cycle whilst unfit through drink or drugs, but there's actually no limit. And you can have a bizarre situation where cyclists can be going faster than cars, and even though they're in excess of the limit, they're not committing an offence. So we have a huge increase in the amount of cyclists on our roads, which is welcome. It's a very environmental and healthy way to travel. And this isn't a war against anybody. This is to try and create harmony on our roads because we have limited space. But it's to share the roads and our limited space in a responsible way. And you know, for example, you see many cyclists and scooters going through red lights. They go on the pavements. They pose a serious risk to other people and, of course, to themselves.
You've still got to have the enforcement, though, haven't you, with the scooters? I know you mentioned it, the law's still there, but if no one's catching people riding these, reg plate or no reg plate, they're not going to get caught, are they?
Well, if you have a reg plate, I mean, you know, if a car, for example, drives dangerously, you often get a video of that and it's downloaded on a police website and the police deal with it. They send a notice to the registered keeper of the car and that person is prosecuted. If you have the same incident with an e-scooter or a bicycle, you have that dangerous cycling or that dangerous driving on an e-scooter. But what more do you have? How do you trace the culprit? You don't. If you have a registered tabard and it operates in exactly the same way as the database, for example, at Swansea with DVLA, then there is exactly the same system in place. But if you, I mean, can you imagine the mayhem that would exist if you say, let's take all number plates off cars and let people just, you know, do what they want? That is the analogy that currently exists for e-scooters and for cycles, because there's no real means unless you actually stop them. And we know there are literally, we're in an era of robotic policing. There are no police on the streets. You know, the Met were, and I heard you say a few moments ago, well, in your area, they're going to start seizing e-scooters. The Met were saying, well, we're actually seizing 4 a day. There are tens of thousands of unlawful e-scooters on our roads in each of our areas. And in my view, what should happen? I mean, these e-scooters can go up to 70 miles an hour. They're uninsured. They cause mayhem on our roads. They're behind criminal offences, such as snatching mobile phones, handbags. Why don't the police say, right, we're going to have an e-scooter seizure week, and literally seize thousands because they cost money? And if the police are seen to be doing something, then they will dissuade people from having these on the road because, of course, their very presence is illegal.
We're gonna talk to the police in a little while, Nick. So what would you like to see then? You think so? How would a reg plate work
Well,
then on a scooter?
Well, because of the limited space for e-scooters and cycles, I suggest that the rider has a tabard with a number on, so it doesn't identify the personal details of that person. That is a number like a registration plate, and if somebody commits an offence, then a member of the public can report that, either
You could
video or
easily
report it
fake
to
that
the
though,
police.
couldn't you?
So you can with car number plates. No system is perfect. No system is perfect. There are many people who commit crimes in motor vehicles with false plates on. It happens all the time. But the majority of people will accept this is the law. And if, of course, you have a system in place where you're going to have a fine and penalty points for not having a number plate that or a tabard that actually belongs to you, it's going to cost you money. Eventually, you're going to be removed from the road. So there will be an incentive to actually be legally compliant. Most people want to follow the law. Most
Yeah.
people are reluctant to change, and I accept that and understand it. But we have to make our roads safer. If you're on a bicycle, you're 15 times more likely to be killed than if you're in a car. You're extremely vulnerable. The statistics are horrific for the number of deaths and serious injuries for cyclists, and unfortunately increasing now for pedestrians. So we can't just sit back and do nothing. And it's interesting to note, I know that Boris Johnson's been spoken to yesterday about this, and he says, well, I don't want to do anything to discourage a green friendly way of travel. So I just wonder whether or not he's planning on removing number plates from the electric vehicles, because that in effect is what he's suggesting. I don't want to impose any restrictions on people who are going to travel in an environmentally friendly way.
Nick, good to have you on the show to start the conversation. That is Nick Freeman, who started that petition. 12